Through the Suez Canal to the Mediterranean on Monday, it will be the first time Iranian vessels have sailed through that key shipping lane since 1979, believed to be on their way to Syria. Israeli Foreign Minister Avigdor Lieberman has condemned the move as a provocation. Early results from Uganda's presidential poll suggest the incumbent, Yoweri Museveni, is headed for a big win. Provisional results from nearly all the polling stations show he has a 68% share of the vote. Victory for Museveni would extend his 25-year rule by another 5 years. The Somali government's confirmed 4 Americans who went missing on Friday have been kidnapped by Somali pirates. The quartet was sailing on a private yacht off the coast of Oman when the ship was hijacked.
As a government, we confirm that 4 Americans were kidnapped by Somali pirates. We condemn this action. It is unacceptable. So the Somali government will try all it can to get information regarding this incident. We request the international community help stem the increasing piracy in Somalia.
And the world's biggest economies meeting in Paris have reached a compromise deal on how to track imbalances in the global financial system. The G20 had blamed the issue for making the financial crisis of 2008 much worse than it might have been. Ministers have also been focusing on things like commodity and food prices, trying to find ways to protect the world's poorest countries from big price swings. And once again, those are your headlines here on Al Jazeera. Empire is next with Marwan Bishara.
As geeks take on dictators,
we will resist until our dying breath.
Bloggers turn dissidents.
Egyptians have set themselves on fire.
And social networks root for social justice. Governments are going cyber.
We will ensure that these networks are secure.
Spying on their citizens, erecting firewalls like iron curtains, and closing down websites. We ask, is cyber-generated change virtual or real? This is Empire. Hello and welcome to Empire, coming to you from the prestigious School of Journalism at Columbia University. Information is power. And in the age of information, YouTube, Facebook, and Twitter have become the new weapons of mass mobilization, transforming entire societies from Iran, Tunisia, and Egypt through the favelas in Rio and Bethlehem refugee camps. People can see the difference, imagine the alternative, and organize for a better future.
After more than 2 decades of rule by
Tunisia's revolution has marked its place in history.
Tunisia is now a country in chaos.
But it didn't happen overnight. And weeks before the world's mainstream media woke up to the story, tweets, photos, and videos began popping up on the internet from Tunisia, warning of trouble to come. A fruit and vegetable seller from Sidi Bouzid had set himself. Suddenly, reactions on the Twitterverse were exploding. Following the hashtag Sidi Bouzid, I called up hundreds of photos and videos showing students protesting, police abuses, and sporadic gunfire. As the messages went viral, protests broke out across the world showing solidarity with Tunisia.
Tunisia unrest makes waves in Lausanne.
Demo tomorrow outside the Tunisian embassy in London.
A flash mob is planned in Berlin on Saturday.
Mainstream media was just beginning to catch up.
There are no reporters in Tunisia to tell us what's really happening.
About this sooner. Mass media has totally failed.
Terrorism equals lots of media coverage. Democratic revolution
began hacking into and deleting Facebook accounts. Protesters called for help from hacktivist groups.
An unprecedented crackdown on social media.
Censorship should get in touch with hacktivists and
we really need a local version of Anonymous in the Arab world.
And soon enough, another hashtag appeared across the networks. Anonymous.
The Tunisian government has decided it wants to restrict the freedoms of their own people. In doing so, the Tunisian government has made itself an enemy of Anonymous.
Within a matter of hours, paralyzing the president's site, several key ministries, and the stock exchange. The group also shared a cyber war survival guide, sharing cables from WikiLeaks documenting Ben Ali's corruption, tips on running from cops, and proxy sites to access Facebook and Twitter. The government quickly countered with a phishing operation, stealing Facebook and email passwords to spy on activists and obliterate online dissent. But tweets continued to spread, documenting a society's breakdown.
The internet is reportedly cut off from Sidi
People are
Bouzid.
creating barricades to protect their neighborhood.
Students demonstrating in Klubia, 50 miles
Injured
east.
young man shot by police in his back in Kafsa.
For a full week, I watched the story unfold online, speaking to activists, using Facebook and Twitter as protests turned bloody. And on January 12th, with Ben Ali's regime on the verge of collapse, Time magazine finally found the story. But the social networks had the best coverage. A new power structure had emerged, and protests had spread to other countries, and governments scrambled to buy time.
Algeria steps up grain imports.
King Abdallah of Jordan sacks government.
Plus free food for a year to keep calm.
But the anger had already rooted itself inside Arab minds. Through social networks, Egyptians had began drawing connections in late December.
Egyptians should copy Tunisia revolt.
Toppling their dictator. That will start a chain reaction in the Arab world.
Tunisia solidarity demo on Sunday.
Inspired by Tunisia's success, finally, the fear factor had broken. January 25th, a public holiday in Egypt, marking the day in 1952 that saw police back up the Egyptian people's resistance against British occupation. As people organized, they drew upon Tunisia's success, sharing pamphlets on peaceful protesting and self-defense. They made plans to circumvent police barricades, quickly capturing the world's attention. But Mubarak also learned from Tunisia. On January 27th, just as President Obama appeared live on YouTube answering questions from the public, Egypt's president took the unprecedented step of shutting down the internet. But he was too late. The World Wide Web was against him. The accounts of police abuse and violence circulated online, including footage that the Associated Press picked up showing what some have called Egypt's Neda moment. A coalition of volunteers, organizations, and activists set up platforms to get the message out.
Egyptians, email me if you want to post info on Twitter.
To break the block on Twitter, use this proxy.
Hotline numbers for legal aid and requesting lawyers. 010.
Even journalists in Egypt used their cell phones to send tweets to friends who relayed their messages.
Internet's still down in Egypt. We'll continue to tweet via
Shireen is safe. She just doesn't have internet access. So I'm tweeting on her behalf.
To stop any news getting out, the government went after the media. Journalists were detained, and the US government, which had been waffling in its response, turned to Twitter to make their voice heard.
We are concerned by the shutdown of AlJazeera in Egypt and the arrest of its correspondents. Egypt must be open and the reporters released.
30 minutes later, our journalists were released, showing that even governments can use social media to get things done.